Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here to present to us. I have a lot of questions going through my head right now, so I'm going to try to compartmentalize. If I'm hearing you folks right, China clearly is a state-driven strategy that they're deploying, and to me, what it's really going to take to match that kind of effort and resources, and quite frankly, as long of a commitment as they are able or even willing to commit to, it's going to require a multinational response. This is not something by any means the United States can do alone, should do alone. And so I'd just like to hear from you folks your thoughts on how we engage not only unilaterally, but especially multilaterally when we take a look at our allies. You already see Japan cracking down on photoresist materials, and that's probably one of the most critical aspects that they can bring to the table, in addition to manufacturing equipment, to trying to really kind of cut down on this China hold on cellular modules, chips, and everything else. You know, you look at Taiwan at the same time, and obviously they're the world's leading foundry. They're the biggest one, if I'm not mistaken, but they also have the most advanced chips as well that they developed. You even look at the Netherlands, and you look at EUV lithography machines, right? I mean, if we think about the various allies that we have in play, Korea, memory chips, advanced logic chips, right? If you think of the allies that we have in our corner with us, what can they strategically bring to the game so that we can effectively not just clamp down, but we can really decouple, look to decouple ourselves in the near future from China dominance in these particular areas? And then if we have time, I would love to know, for our contribution to that effort, what should we be putting into a CHIPS 2.0? And we know that even just this past summer with the Big Ugly Bill, we took out $1 billion in investment from the Wireless Innovation Fund, which really should have put us on track to be able to compete from a technology standpoint with China. So what can we put in as our piece of the pie, in addition to our allies, to really be able to look at successfully decoupling ourselves from China dominance in the market?
I'll jump in on that. Thank you for the great questions. I'll maybe just focus on the first part of your comments and building out something like an allied supply chain. I do think that that's a necessity, whether we're talking about creating new markets for sourcing critical materials, looking at how to leverage new technologies and co-produce with other Western manufacturing entities, looking at how we can serve each other's markets. And I'm principally referring to North America, Europe, and then parts of the Indo-Pacific, where we already have alignment in terms of working as competitive marketplaces, but where the dependencies are common. We're going to have a much easier time pushing back against this in the midterm and the long term if we have a harmonization. But I think that can actually start right now. I mentioned the idea of common tariff regimes, common import restrictions, investment review mechanisms. There are things that can be implemented. I do worry a little bit about the Europeans and whether they're coming along in terms of understanding the existential nature of this threat. It's a complicated relationship, for example, between the Germans and the Chinese for a lot of reasons. But we have to move along in that conversation, and we should be thinking about our trade negotiations in context of these types of big existential challenges.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would echo that, but I'd also, what I like about the vehicle connectivity rule is the pressure it puts on your allies. I don't think in the UK our government has sufficiently considered what that effect of these sorts of rules would be on our own economy. For instance, in the UK, automotive industry is, I think it exports about 80% of its product, either finished or components. If the American market is closed to those, we better wake up. The American market is a very important market to Europe. So if you're saying to Europeans, you want access to our market, these are the rules, you better stick by them, that I think is a very important shaper of the way that companies will behave. But I think your bigger point is also very important. If you look at the, how does one define it? Five Eyes countries, the Quad, Korea, the free and open countries, however you like to define it. we represent a very large chunk of global GDP. I can't remember the exact figure. 67 comes to mind, but I may have got that wrong. If there is an agreed set of the way you trade, operate, invest, and everything else between us, anyone can join, but you stick by the rules in the way that China did not stick by the rules in the WTO. That, I think, would be a very effective mechanism if we can bring it about. But I take your point that Europe is, and my own country, I think are still insufficiently alert to what we're facing from China.
I know we're over time, but if I may just add one point. In our capitalist system, where the CEOs of American corporations are very much rational thinkers and they are practically incentivized to think about the profits of their corporation, there's always been a natural incentive to lower costs. And so historically, lowering costs has meant offshoring manufacturing and doing things overseas. And I think in doing that, you do achieve a short-term bump in stock price, a short-term bump in GDP. I think that's overlooking the fact that the loss of some of these critical industries has a far greater cost to the country than the benefit of stock price and short-term profits of these companies. And I hope that our policies take those existential threats in consideration.
Thank you. I think, Mr. Chair, we talked about that yesterday, how we have to get away from America's love of cheap things and good deals and go more towards that America First conversation we had. So thank you very much. I yield back.
Thank you.